So thank you everybody for coming out, and those of you who are online who are viewing this tonight, we're going to talk about the facility strategic plan. Tomorrow morning there will actually be a website up with this presentation and the complete document that the committee put together. But tonight is the final report to the community. So I want to give a special thanks to begin with. This process started back in 2018. There is a pre-pandemic process and a post-pandemic process. So we were working as part of a committee before the pandemic hit. When it hit, we stopped. And then we reconstituted the committee. And over that time, from the beginning to the end, about 100 people participated. Some folks came in and they participated once. Some people came in and they participated in every meeting. And then other people were in between. And you could come to any meeting once or every time or anything in between. All of these meetings were open to the public, and you did not have to go to all of them to be part of the committee. So I want to say to anybody, anyone who participated, board members, community members, parents, teachers, administrators, thank you. This was a very long process. There was a lot involved. We covered a lot of ground, and we have a wonderful, wonderful report here for the Board of Education and the community. This final report has 4 sections. There's an executive summary, there's a process section, there's a potential funding section, and then the appendix, things that we use to help make decisions. And throughout the report, there's a bunch of charts and other graphics that are in there. The executive summary addresses 12 topics the committee talked about. 10 topics are actionable items, 2 topics are informational items. So why are the informational items in there? The informational items helped guide us to make other decisions. The process, and this is, I don't like using this term, but this is what the process is, and my staff and board has heard me make this term before, is how the sausage was made. How did we work? How did we do things? How was all that stuff coming together, and how did we come to recommendations? So you see a little bit of the detail, or maybe too much of the detail, in the process section. And then ultimately, what are ways that these projects can be funded? So that's the final report. So what is the facility strategic plan? Why did we do this? Why were we going forward? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to assess the current state of our district, and we wanted to envision a future for our school district. And like I said, we came up with 12 topics to do that. We looked at our aging facilities, our growing student population, our expanding programs, and we looked to provide modern facilities for all of our students and for our faculty and staff. The committee's work, as I said before, was conducted openly and inclusively, inviting input from all stakeholders in Hamilton Township. We had a goal, and this is the one thing I'll read verbatim for you. So the goal was to examine Hamilton Township School District's facilities, enrollment in each building, current and potential grade configurations, and develop a long-range plan to address the needs of our students in schools. We had a facility assessment, we did enrollment analysis, we looked at grade and program configuration, and what a long-range plan could be for the district. So that was what the committee was tasked with. And as I said before, this is a story of pre-pandemic work and post-pandemic work. So the committee met 11 times before the pandemic, 17 times post-pandemic, and then there were 11 writing subcommittees on top of that. So let's get to the executive summary and the recommendations. So these recommendations are ranked. I want to say that. They are ranked by the committee at the very end, I think the second to last meeting we had. So they're ranked 1 through 12, and 2 of the information items are mixed in there as part of the recommendations. However, very clear to the Board of Education, very clear to the community. The ranking of an item up here should not be an indication that something else should go before something in front of it. Meaning, if there is something that the district can do that's lower in the list and we're able to complete that, then the recommendation is to try and complete that. Okay, but when we look at what are things we need and when do we need them, that's how we priority listed these. So item number 1 is a preschool program. One of the things I've talked about many times while I've been up here in my superintendent's report or talked about in the budget or had community meetings is a missing piece in Hamilton Township. That missing piece is a preschool program. Okay, and so our kindergarten teachers will tell you that right off the bat, that we need a preschool program. We have a very small preschool program, partly where some parents can pay for a part-time program, and we also have a special ed preschool program for students, but it's a very small group of students. It's maybe about 300 students at most, when it's completely filled every seat. But we need a preschool program. Part of the problem is we don't have enough seats, and we have lots of students that are eligible. So the state will ask you to determine how many 3- and 4-year-olds are eligible for preschool. That's called your universe. Our universe in Hamilton Township is 900 students. That's 3- and 4-year-olds together. So we need at some point in the future to be able to educate 900 children. We have to start somewhere. So the recommendation is a preschool program. Build a new building, hire a consultant to help us get some grants and get it off the ground, and explore grants through the New Jersey Department of Education for construction and for staffing. I'm going to talk a little more about this towards the end of the report on where we go from here. So that's item number 1 recommendation. Item number 2 recommendation is a new grade configuration. And that includes some additions and changes within the district. So every one of these recommendations kind of intertwined with another recommendation. One thing has to be done so another thing can get done. So grade configuration, the committee looked at 5 different models. The recommendation from the committee would be to have preschools, 1 to 3 schools, then change our K-5 schools to K-4 schools, where we would have 14 to 16 schools. And this may require possible additions to elementary schools and adjustments to sending lines. Have 2 5-6 buildings, which would be Reynolds and Grice, because they are identical schools. Have a 7-8 building, which would be Crockett, which would require an addition onto Crockett, and then have our 3 high schools, our 9-12 schools, and the committee has recommended academy programs at each high school, which is a further recommendation later on down here. So I want to just focus on one item here in grade configuration. And this will be brought up again later on in the presentation. But 1 7-8 building where every student in our district can come together for 2 years and focus on our One Hamilton motto. It's a really great opportunity for kids to come together. The next recommendation is HVAC. So let me summarize that conversation in the committee. We need AC, right? Our schools need AC. We know that. But it's harder than just putting window units in. Our district needs electrical upgrades, and then we need to work towards air conditioning big spaces, like the space we're in here right now. So air conditioning cafetoriums, cafeterias, gymnasiums, libraries first, and then move into the classrooms. If we can get the bigger spaces air conditioned first, what we'll be able to do is provide cooling spaces for students when the weather gets hot. So right now, recommendation is to continue working to air condition the big spaces, which next year we're planning in the budget to do Layler Elementary School, and move that through all of our schools as we go forward, but then ultimately being able to air condition all of our buildings, all of our spaces. The next recommendation is facility spaces in schools. And what the committee looked at is what must every school have and what should every school have. And what they looked at it was from the perspective of the district actually going into the grade configuration that was recommended. However, if you don't, we just say, instead of K4, we say elementary must have. So every K4 or elementary school must have a school library. It must have a music and art room and an interchangeable space for the arts. Must have a guidance room for counselors and small group meeting, and must have updated bathroom facilities. And I want to say, as part of the referendum, we did a number of upgrades to our bathroom facilities. If you go to the bathrooms over here in Sunnybury, where we are today, those are upgraded bathrooms, and we've done that through a number of spaces in the district, but we should continue to do that. What are some should-haves? Well, every elementary school should have a separate lunchroom and a separate gym. That makes scheduling a lot easier, and it also gives us an opportunity to have 2 large cooling spaces. Every school should have small group instruction for speech, physical therapy, which I'll call PT from now on, occupational therapy, which I'll refer to as OT from now on, multilingual learner space, which I'll call MLs from now on, small group lessons, and should have classrooms for growth. Should also have a conference room space for staff and parent meetings, and parking for faculty and staff on property, which is a recommendation later in the report. Additionally, should-haves or must-haves at the 5-6 buildings, small group instruction for speech, PT, OT, MLs, small group lessons, redeveloped shop, STEAM classrooms, which have started, and every elementary school should have programming that prepares students to enter one middle school focused on our One Hamilton motto. At the 7-8 level, must-haves. Programming that exposes students to the high school academy programs, again, a recommendation coming up. Larger lunch space to address additional students. Appropriate athletic fields for gym and sports. Proper space for all buses to drop off and pick up students. Team building and community building activities associated with our One Hamilton motto. What should they have? A separate wing for the 7th grade and a separate wing for the 8th grade, and parking for all of our staff on facilities. The next recommendation, and this is a recommendation that I know is a tough recommendation with change. So a recommendation on our high school pools. The recommendation from the committee is to consolidate the 3 high school pools to 1, then eventually to none at the high school, but with a brand new facility at an addition on the middle school, where we could bring all of our swim teams to. So a couple things on this. Number one, the recommendation is not to stop the swim programs. We have operated with 1 pool before. Right now we are operating with 2 pools. One of our pools has not been functioning because it needs so much repair and has a leak that it is financially difficult to do that. And in addition, our high schools are growing in enrollment. We have a high school with over 1,300 students. We have a high school with over 1,400 students, and we have a high school with almost 1,100 students. We need to create space. So the pools at West and Steiner are recommended by the committee to be converted into classroom space and big instruction space, and Nottingham's to stay open until we can make a decision on an addition onto the middle school, with the hopes of adding the pool there, where we would then teach swimming to middle school students. I say this comment often, and I hope it is taken with a little bit of humor. At the high school level, kids don't change for swimming, and we don't do swimming anymore at the high school because kids, when they go to high school, are allergic to chlorine. So they get notes that say they can't change for school. And I believe we should be teaching kids to swim much earlier. We should be teaching kids to swim in middle school and elementary school. And we actually did a pilot program this year at Layler for summer camp where we matched up with the YMCA, and the students that went to the summer camp were taught to swim at the Y. So we need to continue to do that. And so that's why this change is here. This also modernizes our high schools and also is tied to our academy program, which is a recommendation coming up. So this is an informational item. The committee spent a lot of time on grade structure analysis, and as I said before, they looked at 5 different models, and a lot of this grade structure analysis work led to not only the grade structure we've recommended, but also the academy recommendation, the recommendation associated with the pools, and some other recommendations of must-haves and should-haves in the buildings. But that's why we added to the report. School property for expansion. So the committee looked at what schools could be expanded, and expansion is 2 different ways. You can expand up and you can expand out. And so there is a chart in the report that shows what property can be expanded on, what property can't be expanded on, and what property do we need more information beyond what the committee could collect during our time. So the report says, yes, the property can be expanded on, which is 15 of our schools. No, we can't do any expansion, which is 3 of our schools. And then maybe, we're not sure yet, we have to take a look. We're not sure if we expanded what impact that would have on instruction and space, and that's 5 of our schools. When we also looked at expansion, we looked at other things that might need to be on property, things that would result in expanding out or up. So do we need an additional cafeteria or gym or designated art or music room? And you can see the schools that are listed there that need any one of or all of those items. Also noted in the chart on the full report. Do we just need a designated art or music room, or library has limited space? And there are 4 schools that need that dealt with. Do we need a designated art and music room, and that's the only thing we need? There's only 1 school that needs that. Do we need to redesign the library spaces, which are these 70s open spaces? There are 2 schools that have that. University Heights and Wilson are identical schools. Their library and their small instruction space are open spaces that are just office dividers, right? So they don't even go to the ceiling. And then we need to look at the future use of HEP as an instructional location, or do we need to relocate it? An informational item, as we're looking at grade spans and we're looking at implementing a preschool and we're looking at doing different programming, we're going to eventually need to look at school start times and transportation. Do we need to add another tier to our transportation? And do we need to look at what time each of our schools opens so that we can maximize transportation and learning at each level? But that's an informational item that will need to be addressed in the future. So then, out of all of this work, it's not only about facilities and what we need to have and should have and what things need to be renovated or added onto, but it's also about what kind of programming can we bring forward to the future of Hamilton Township. And the committee felt strongly that at the high school level, we should begin to explore academy ideas. And each high school would be its own academy with different programming. So for example, High School 1 could be a vocational academy with woodshop and production and trades, agricultural sustainability and entrepreneurialism. Academy 2, or at High School 2, would be more STEM-based, so drone technology, cybersecurity, biomedical, gaming, education, teaching, and design technology. And then Academy number 3 at High School 3 could be performance and community, creative writing and literature, visual and performing arts, social media marketing, first responders. These are some of the groupings that the committee thought would be very valuable to the future of our students, provide them opportunities they don't have right now, and give them a leg up not only on other high school students, but give them a leg up on their future education and their future in general. One of the other items that came up was sustainability. If we're going to increase our electrical use because we're going to begin to put AC around the district and the cost of electricity is going up, we need to look to become sustainable. So where can we put solar in, and what incentives are there for solar? And can that be on the roof? Can that be in the parking lots? What can we do to become more sustainable as a community? So the committee has said that's the next step as we begin to make changes to our buildings and make upgrades to the HVAC systems. Committee also looked at the use of Park Avenue, which is where most of our administrative team is right now. We talked a little bit about should HEP be moved over there and Park Avenue renovated? Should we relocate some members of the departments to Park Avenue? Should we relocate transportation and district buses to Park Avenue because we don't have enough space for the growing bus fleet that we have over there at Bell Avenue, and we need to address the parking for the employees of Bell Avenue? And should we use Park Avenue, if we don't use them for any of those other items, as district storage that requires climate control based on the documents that we must keep for 10, 20, 30, 99 years? And then ultimately, if none of that works, potentially sell the property. And then another item that came up as we talked, in many of our buildings, we have more staff than we have parking spots. And our staff parks on the street. So there is a chart in the final report that identifies the number of staff and the number of parking spots on every property. And the recommendation is to identify additional spaces on properties so staff can park there without limiting student playgrounds, without limiting student blacktop. How do we relocate storage? How do we remove storage? How do we adjust fencing? How do we make more space so staff can move their cars off the street and onto the property? And after I talked a little bit with some principals about the report coming up and what this recommendation was, the principal will remain nameless, but that principal sent me a sketch of how that could work at the building. That person is principal, and drew it out for me and said, here, do this. So everybody's thinking already. So that is the 12 recommendations, and then the report goes into the process, which includes work from our architect of record, Spiesel Architects, a demographic study that was done by Sundance, and some other work that we did as we brainstormed and came together. And then we look at it and we say, okay, there's a lot of things here we want to do. How do you fund those things? And so there are a lot of different things or different ways that we can fund. State and federal funding, we can look for grants, but there aren't many of those. We can look at our capital reserve, which we budget every year. We can build into our budget allocations. We can go out to referendum like we did a couple of years ago for the life safety and security work that we did. And we can do incentive programs, but I purposely left off this one right here, County Improvement Authority bonding, because this is a new program. This is a new program that was just approved that allows us to go to the county to bond for funding for different projects. And we're learning about this, and we are reaching out to the county to find more information about it so that we can be better educated and also work to fund some of these projects through county bonding. So what now? All this information. I was very clear to the Board of Education, I was very clear to the committee that all of this work, all of these meetings, 100 pages of a report, are not going to sit on a shelf and collect dust. That's a waste of everybody's time. It's a waste of our community's time. It's a waste of resources. And this district needs to move forward. We need to move forward into the future for the betterment of our students, our staff, and the community. So where do we begin? The board can pick any of these recommendations, all these recommendations, and the board can make decisions on where they want to proceed and don't want to proceed. Kind of a roadmap for them, kind of a roadmap for us as a community. But there are two decisions that we actually need to move forward with for the future, and you'll see some items on the agenda tonight because there are plans that have to be drawn up, there are people we have to talk with, there are things that have to go into place that if we really want to do these projects, we have to do some of the background work now, so if it becomes available, we can do it later. And that's the preschool buildings and the high school pools. So you'll see on the agenda tonight that there are a couple of items here that allow us, the administration, authorized to move forward with working with our architects, working with the county, getting additional information to bring forward for further board action, to get drawings finalized. So these are two items that are here for proposals that we need to get some work done forward. These items are there so that we can move forward. And one of the really great things is if you go back to the proposal on the preschool, it says go out and get state grants. Well, we did that in advance because a grant came for facilities. And we were awarded a grant from the state that will pay 40% of the facility cost to build a brand new preschool here in the district. It'll be the first time we ever have our own preschool, 350 seats for students. The state will pay 40%. We need to work on getting the other 60% bonded. So that's why some of these things are on here today to do that. If we're able to do that, this is a big step for our district. It's a huge step for our district. It sets us forward, sets our students forward. It creates a new environment here. The proposal for that preschool would be on the back end of Robinson Elementary School. So yesterday I went and spoke with the staff at Robinson Elementary School. And what I want to make clear to the public is this. That preschool, if built, is a separate building. Separate principal, separate staff, separate parking, separate entrance, separate cafeteria, separate space for everything. They will have two adjoining hallways. those hallways, and we'll talk more about this with the architects. They've said it could be swipe access in and out from one side to the other. But these are separate spaces. There's an elementary school called Robinson Elementary School that will stay Robinson Elementary School. Principal, the staff, all part of that building. And then there will be a Hamilton preschool. That property and those students will enter from the other street, which is the backside of Robinson. And I want to be clear about that. We are not making one super school. That is not happening. But I think it's important for all of us to understand that that could move quickly, I would hope, if possible, so that we could start moving forward with the planning and all the other things that are necessary when you start doing these type of things. That is exciting for us. That's moving us forward. That's creating an environment we haven't had before. And that's why I say what this report does is it starts the future now for Hamilton Township. This report will put us in a position to move this district into the future and create an environment for our kids, our staff, and our community that we haven't had. I thank every person that was part of this process to make this report possible, to make these recommendations possible. And I thank the board members who participated, and thank you for listening to the presentation.